Welcome to the Parent Partnership Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Today, I'm really excited because we have Suzette with us. Welcome, Suzette.
Hello.
So Suzette is a foster parent turned adoptive parent. And so she is actually a part of our Parent Partnership team. She's phenomenal. She's raised a lot of these kids. They're amazing children. She's part of our church and really I feel like spearheading this area in such a positive way. And so she's going to be here as a resource for foster parents, adoptive parents. So today we're just going to kind of hit an overall foster adoptive parent topic. So
Okay.
to start this off, how many kids do you have?
I have 9 kids, 1 biological, who's grown and on her own, and then I have 8 kids at home.
She's just incredible. What ages?
I have twins, a boy and a girl that are 17. I have a boy that is 13, a girl that is 12, a boy that is 11, a boy and a girl that are 10, and a girl that is 7.
That's awesome. So what was the youngest that you started with?
Right from the hospital when they were born. 2 of them came right from the hospital.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So you've hit every single age with fostering and adopted from newborn, and now your oldest twins are 17.
Correct.
Yes. That's awesome. And not every child you've had has been from birth, correct?
No. The oldest I took for a foster, I had a sibling group, and there were brothers. One was 9, one was 7. Then they had a sister that was 1.5, and then the one that I adopted that's now 7, she came from the hospital from that family. So I already had the 3 siblings, so she came with me. But
Gotcha.
Which the 2 boys went to grandparents.
Okay.
But I had them for almost 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So the oldest I took was a 9-year-old.
Okay. That's great. So what started this whole I want to foster? How did you know that this was what the Lord was asking you to do? Was it just a passion? How did this even start?
No, it was God's calling, and I knew, and I kind of put it off for a little while, and then finally I was like, I really know that I need to do this. Right. I never ever thought that I would adopt 8 children.
Yeah.
Never ever had that planned for my life.
Right.
And even when I started fostering, I wasn't going with the intent of adopting. I was going with the intent of fostering and reuniting them with their parents.
That's awesome.
But things changed.
Okay.
And I have had some children that I did foster that have went home. So I mean, that has happened too.
Okay. So how long did you foster before you started the process of adopting?
The system is set up that if parents can't meet certain criteria to get their children back within 1.5 to 2 years, they decide they're going to start the process of terminating the child to be adopted.
Okay.
So for me, the beginning of adoption was the children that I had. Parents weren't meeting what they needed to in time. So then they would say, so it's your choice if you foster. If you don't want to adopt, they would find another home for them. But obviously that wasn't what I was going to do.
Right. So they gave you first choice, where these children have
been with you.
Meeting it. They've been with you for 18 months to 2 years. Do you want to adopt them, or else we're going to find a different family?
Correct.
Is that the process?
Yeah.
Okay. So how many, all of your children, right? All of them haven't met. So you've adopted all of them.
All the ones in my home right now, yes, are all adopted.
Was there children that met, how did you know? And this is how do you ask these questions? But these things you got to talk about, right? How do you know that, yes, this child is up for adoption? You have 8 of them. So yes, I'm going to adopt this child. Has there been any children that were up for adoption that weren't a good fit for your family? How did you make that choice? Has that come about?
That's never came about for me because I've always kept every one of them.
Yeah.
I think like that starts back before adoption comes about.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to make them be a right fit.
Yeah.
Like you have to have a understanding. And like,
yeah.
I will say like with fostering, someone told me this long ago when I started, and it's so true. You have to give a child like at least a year with you.
Absolutely.
To totally settle in, even if they do well, even if they come very young.
Mm-hmm.
It takes at least a year
Right.
for a child. And the older they are, the more of a struggle.
Yeah.
But it takes at least a year to really, for you and the kids you already have in your house and yourself, for everyone to settle. It doesn't happen quickly.
Right. That's really good advice.
So by the time most of mine were available to be adopted, we'd already worked past
Gotcha.
that, and
Yeah.
we were a good fit.
Okay.
But
That's awesome.
it definitely takes time,
Okay.
especially if they're a little bit older.
Mm-hmm.
It takes some time.
Have the older children that you've fostered and then adopted, did they go through, and we're not trying to air out anyone's dirty laundry here, but did they go through trauma before getting to you? Because I know a lot, I've seen it, and other foster parents that have said these kids come with like either their parents were addicted to drugs, or they've had personal trauma that's been inflicted on them, or they've gone through traumatic events. And like, what does that look like going through that at home with other kids? Like, how does that work?
It's most of all mine that I have adopted came to me at a young age, but I do have I have about 4 of my kids that went through different trauma that it definitely affects them. Now,
Right.
the longer they've been with me and the older they are, we've worked through it. But when they first came, there was definitely issues. Like
Right.
if you have a child that has not been taken care of, or even as a baby or a young infant, their needs weren't met. They are totally different than a child you may have that you constantly met the needs from birth.
Right.
Like I had a 2 that would cry and scream a lot, but that was what they learned to do in their environment they were in.
Right.
And it was a lot of just constantly making sure that they were reassured that they didn't have to do that you were there.
Yeah.
And now that they're older, because they are now my 12-year-old and 11-year-old,
Yeah.
they've kind of grown out of that, but it
That's
took
awesome.
a while. And people would be like, they cry over a little thing, and I'm like, it's just part of
Yeah.
what they learned.
What they had to do.
And then one of my children witnessed some domestic abuse trauma
Yeah.
that has affected him, but honestly, with just prayer and
Yeah.
God,
Absolutely.
they've really worked through. I mean, I'm not saying they've worked through it. They're still.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've done well.
Yeah.
But it just takes time and consistency,
Yeah.
church,
Absolutely.
things like that.
So you've taken all your kids to church.
Yes, my kids have all went to church since I've had them.
That's awesome. And I know your older ones go to youth group.
Yes.
So you've been very diligent. Like that's like in the framework of your home.
Yes. It's absolute. It's not a choice.
That's awesome. Good.
My kids are fine with that. They love going to church.
Yeah,
they love.
They do.
But most definitely, they've all been in church their whole life.
That's awesome. Do you start that right when you get them?
Yep.
That's great. This is just what we do.
As soon as they were born, they've all just, most of them, because they came so little, most of them were, like I said, either a year or younger. Some of them a little older, but they've went to church ever since the day I've had them. So yeah.
That's awesome. So have you ever fostered children? Like, have you already had like, let's say a 4 and a 5-year-old, and then you took in older children above them? Have you ever disrupted that like order?
I did when I took the sibling group, the 9-year-old and 7-year-old, and then the youngest at that time, she was a year and a half. When I took them, it was supposed to be for a weekend placement.
Gotcha.
Until they could find them a home. And then it ended up being, they were with us for almost 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And that was definitely a huge I wouldn't say a struggle, but it was rough.
Yeah.
Because the 9-year-old had major behaviors and he had some mental illness, and behaviors and those kids went through some major trauma.
Yeah.
So that was a big change in my house when they came for the rest of us.
Yeah.
But we worked through it, and it was a struggle, and I learned a lot of things that I didn't know.
Yeah.
Because I never really dealt with a behavior child, but it worked out well. And like he ended up going to a grandparent in Florida. He was with us for almost 4 years, and he still reaches out to me.
That's awesome.
Like we still have a good relationship with him, and he still has struggles, but
you're still there.
We're positive support for him.
That's amazing. So I have heard other people who foster say to, especially if you have your own children living in the house, to not disrupt birth order. Like if you have, if your oldest child is 15, you should have foster adopt under that. If your youngest child is 9, that should be you adopt under that birth order. Have you heard that? Do you have any experience in that, thoughts towards that?
I have heard that. Not from foster agencies because they need whoever will do whatever.
Whoever is willing.
I don't know if I would say that it's always, it depends. I think a lot of it depends on the situation that the child needs to be fostered for.
Yes, that's true.
Because sometimes it could be trauma. Sometimes it can be that the parents medically can't take care of them.
Right.
Sometimes it can be a parent passed away. There's so many different scenarios.
Right, that's true.
As far as, in my case, I've been called to ask to take teenagers before. It depends, certain situations I won't take because I have younger children.
Right,
if they have drug issues, it's just not the right fit. It's not that I wouldn't take them.
You just
if
want
my
them
kids
in a
were
home
teenagers,
where they
I
can't
may
hurt other people. Yeah.
And because I have younger kids,
Yes.
I have to always think about what's best for all of us.
Yes.
It's not just me.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that I would never do it. It's just at this time.
It has to be the right situation. I think that's wisdom.
Right.
I mean, that's wisdom because you have children already. And like you said, you're responsible for everybody. And so that's just things that you have to take into consideration. And
and I'm never saying that I wouldn't at some point if my kids were older and grown up and I was still fostering, then it's not that I wouldn't. It's just it's not the right fit for the ages I have.
And you already have a huge age range right now. That's a big age range. Is there a certain cap that fostering has? You already have, do you still foster now that you have 8 kids in your house?
I don't currently. I did up until last summer. As far as the cap goes, I don't want to say there's ways around it, but there's so many different stipulations. If it's a sibling group, there is no cap if you can keep the siblings together.
Yeah, that's good.
But currently, there's foster system is trying to put them with family more, so you don't have as many needs for foster parents.
That's good.
I did a few respites in the last couple of years, but
respites.
That's where they're already in a foster home and they might need a break, so they will ask them to go to another foster home for a weekend, or if they're going on vacation, or if they had to go to the hospital and they don't have no one, things like that's respites. Yeah.
Okay, I understand. That's good. So what do you think is the number one thing that foster adoptive parents struggle with?
Well, I think one of the things they struggle with is the birth parents. Because it can be tough sometimes.
Yeah.
You just have to be I never really had too many issues with the birth parents. And honestly, when it came to the point of adoptions, most birth parents were glad that I was adopting their child instead of them going somewhere else.
Okay, that's good.
And I always kind of maintained a relationship the best I could with my birth parents.
Yeah.
Because even though I knew that they didn't do what they needed to do, I really wanted them to feel like their child was going to be in a good place.
That's awesome. Yeah.
You know, it's still their child, no matter what they do.
Absolutely.
And I want them to feel like their child's in a good place.
Yeah.
And a lot of my birth parents still do stay in touch with me, not with my kids, because they're not at ages where that's feasible at this point.
Yeah.
But like they'll ask for pictures, and I don't have to do that, but I'm totally fine with doing that. It's not hurting me. It's not hurting my kids. And if it makes them feel better, that's not really something that I think is a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I mean, I'm sure if the situation was harmful, that's a different situation. But I think that's awesome that you try to have that relationship. But like you said, I'm sure you have other foster parents and adoptive parents who speak with you for your help. That seems to be the issue, right?
Yeah.
The biological parents.
It's usually that. And then when the kids start asking about their parents, which is going to happen. I mean, that's only normal.
It's true.
Curiosity is not normal.
And I think it's probably part of my sons 13 and 14, you know, there's like identity questions that are coming up, like well, I got to figure out I need a different haircut, or I think I want to dress this way, or I think I want to try this, and it's like not even like in their realm of like, well, you don't really like that. They want to try a different sport. They want to try a different activity. Like they're just trying to figure out who they are.
Correct.
So I think that's a natural age range like thing to do. You know how like you have your 2s and 3s where they're just like can be crazy, and then they all hit those certain ages. But I think that's the identity age.
Yeah, it's usually like for my kids, it's always been around 10 or 11. That they really start questioning stuff. You know, and they kind of act like they're afraid to question. Yeah. Because I think they think that it's offensive or will hurt me. But I'm always like, you can ask me anything about it. It doesn't upset me. We can talk about this. It's not. It's not like me against them. Like we're all.
That's awesome.
You know, we're all a part of this, and they ask questions, and if it's something I can answer, I do. If it's something beyond their age, I'll just say that's not for now. We can talk about that part when you're older. Yeah. It just depends on the situation and
that's awesome.
The kid, you know.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, the main thing I always focus on when they do come to me at the beginning is God placed you here with me for a reason. This is his plan for you.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm happy this is his plan.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just really the first response I always give them.
That's
and then
incredible.
I always reiterate to them, your parents loved you. They love you now. We all love you.
That's
because
so
I never
good.
want them to feel like it's something to do with them.
Yeah. That's so incredible.
You know, that's always how I respond to it to begin with them.
I love that. So when they come into your home, you have a talk with them. You sit down and talk with them. And God brought you here. Like it's almost like you're placing vision on their life and purpose on their life when they come. I think that's incredible. Like you're right off the bat, this is where the Lord wants you. He has a plan for you. You're giving them
I'll be
purpose.
like, we love your parents, you know, we're going to pray for them. And
that's so good.
Be supportive of that. And then even now after they're adopted, I'm just like, your parents couldn't like do what they needed to take care of you right now, but they loved you and you know.
That's awesome. And that's a very selfless thing, I think, of just outside looking in. That's a very selfless viewpoint to take. That is truly, this is the kid's best interest. This will make the child feel the best, knowing that the parents love them. They're just unable to do these things. I love them. It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Instead of, I took you because no one else would. You know,
I would
that's
never
crazy.
Say that. Even if it's true. Like certain things that are the facts, I will never say to them because it doesn't line up with God's word or like it's no reason. It's not going to be no benefit.
Right.
So I'm always just like, this was your plan, you know, God's plan, and he always has the best plan. And, you know, I always tell him, like, your parents love you.
That's awesome.
Loved you, because I don't never want them to grow up with an identity issue of thinking it was them.
Absolutely.
That's like the most important thing to me about them.
Yeah.
Is that they don't carry that. And so far my kids have not.
That's incredible.
You know what I mean? They're very happy to be all together as one family. My kids
I can vouch for that.
My kids love being together. They love that we're all a family. But I've just always tried to reiterate that to them. You know?
Yeah. Well, even her children serve in kids ministry, and they're phenomenal. Like, your whole family exudes like happiness and love, and that nobody's out of control. And I'm sure there's moments where, you know, there's things that happen because they're kids, but like, it's the culture that you've set in your home. And I'm sure you have to be very intentional with that. And we will do all the separate podcasts on culture and birth parents, and you know, I know there's a bazillion other things, but I'm sure you've had to be extremely intentional on the culture that you set in your house, because you've added so many children in at different times. I have different races, different everything, but we're all like one happy family. And like, when caseworkers have came in, they're like, I love it here. They're like, why would no kid love it here? Like, your house is just, like, they've told me this, a few different workers. Like, I don't know what it is, but your house is just so inviting and loving. Like, no wonder they're so, and I'm like, it's God. It really is. Amen.
That is what it is.
Amen. Because that's
exactly
not everyone's foster story. Yeah. Right. That's not everyone's foster story.
And I mean, I've still had moments over the years of doing this that haven't been the greatest things.
Of course, yeah.
But I just stay focused on like God's word and the big picture, and we just keep going. Yeah. You know. That's awesome. And working through it. But yeah, it's just important to me that they feel, it's always been important to me that they feel like they belong, and but they do. I've never had that arise with my kids. Yeah. But I've just purposely, intently always tried to make it like a family environment, that God is just loves everybody. We love everybody. We're a family. This is his plan for our lives. So it really sounds like your top things are identity, love, and family. Yes. Because there's so many kids that I've known through stories or personally that went through foster care, were adopted, that struggle with identities, and then they turn to alcohol, drugs, different things, because that they didn't feel like they belonged. Absolutely. And I've just always prayed and made that major in my goals as a mom to them, to make sure that that doesn't happen to them. Right. Absolutely. So like the godly principles, they're there. Like, no one's exempt from it. You push those godly principles. This is what we do as a family. And then your vision is the identity and love and family. And I think that's incredible. Yes. I think that's wisdom in how you've set up your house and done that. So I'm like really excited to have you on more. And she's going to be our go-to for fostering, and we're going to get into some nitty-gritty topics where we can get detailed and things like that. So if you have any questions, please reach out, topics that you'd like to hear Suzette talk on. I think that's just all incredible. So thank you for coming on here, and we're excited to talk more about this. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.